Fire meets water, metal meets wood, brewing in the air is a medley mood. Biology, chemistry, physics and math simmering to a tune, a spicy mix and match. Senses indulged, dressed for season. Metamorphosis awaits upon fruition. I am one of the 64. Who am I? This is a kala that a lot of us are not just acquainted with, but have certainly engaged with in different capacities. This is one of my favorite kalas, and it falls under the broader category of a kala called as Aswadi kala. Swad meaning flavor or taste. So Aswadya meaning that which can be tasted, whose flavor we can experience. Simply put, this is the kala of cooking. Vichitra, Shaka, Yusha, Bhakshya, Vikara, Kriya. Vichitra meaning different. Now different could mean various. Different could also mean something that is different from the ordinary, something that is different from normal. Shaka meaning vegetables. Yusha meaning broth or soup. Bhakshya is an umbrella term for food that needs to be chewed. Vikara, product, like we have seen in the previous kala. Kriya is a ritual or an action. It could also mean to activate. So this kala is called Vichitra, Shaka, Yusha, Bhakshya, Vikara, Kriya. Personally, it is my favorite. The amount of tactile engagement, the textures, the temperatures, the shapes, the colors, the smells, the sounds, and the flavors, of course. I think all of this just makes this kala so sensorially holistic. For me, I lose myself. I go into a flow state when I'm cooking. A lot of my creative breakthroughs happens for me when I'm cooking. This is also my favorite way to stress burst. In short, I find this kala very, very meditative. Now we all know what cooking is, right? And boy, what a massive industry this kala, this art of cooking has translated into, right? There is just so much accessibility to different cuisines, different culinary crafts, skills, recipes, techniques. So when I was thinking about how I want to explore this kala, the one thing that I knew is that I don't want to make a cooking video. So this is not a cooking video. So what we are going to do is to rediscover this kala through the oldest standalone cookbook in Sanskrit. Through archaeology, we know a lot about what cooking and what food was like in ancient India, particularly through excavations of the Indus Valley civilization, and more recently through the excavations at Kiradi or the Vaigai Valley civilization. The other texts that have mention of food from ancient times are texts from the Vedic times, from the Vedic era. For example, the Sushruta Samhita and the Charaka Samhita, both of which are primarily texts on medicine, but they have mention of diet, food with medicinal and healing properties. The literature from the Sangam era, which is primarily in Tamil, has mention of different kinds of foods that were cooked around that time. We learn about it from the poetries of those times, either as foods that the poets relished or food that was offered to God. Similarly, Vedic texts also mention about sacred offerings of food to God. Manasullasam, a Kannada text, has 4 segments, and one of the segments talks about food. However, the only standalone compilation that is entirely dedicated to this kala is called as Paaka-Darpanam by Nala. 3 other texts that were written after Paaka-Darpanam are Kshema Kutuhulam, Bhojana Kutuhulam, and Supashastra, with Supashastra being a completely vegetarian cookbook. So all of these cookbooks have been authored by physicians. The Kshema Kutuhulam, the Bhojana Kutuhulam, all the Samhitas from the Vedic times, the Sushruta Samhita, Charaka Samhita, they've all been authored by physicians. The literature from Sangam era have been written by poets. And Paaka-Darpanam has been written or has been attributed to Nala. Who is Nala? We get acquainted with Nala in the Mahabharata. Nala was the king of the Naishadha kingdom who married Princess Damayanti from Vidarbha. Nala was known for his exemplary cooking skills and his immaculate way with horses, including being a very fine charioteer. Now, few people who were not very fond of Nala, who were eyeing his kingdom, invited him to a game of dice. Nala wasn't great at gambling, and this was essentially tricking him into the game by inviting him, knowing that he was not good at it. He lost to the game, he lost everything, he lost his kingdom, and both Nala and Damayanti had to leave their kingdom and live in the forest. Nala loved Damayanti and couldn't bear to see Damayanti suffer because of him. So one day, he just abandoned Damayanti. He abandons her in the forest because he knows that Damayanti will then find her way back to her father's palace and she can go back to living like a princess, comfortably and happily. Moving on further in the forest, Nala encounters a snake, and this snake bites him. The snake bite transforms Nala and makes him completely unrecognizable. Donning a new identity, Nala now goes to the kingdom of Rituparna, Ayodhya, and he seeks employment at the palace of King Rituparna. Being great at cooking and his ability to manage horses, he becomes in charge of the stables as well as heads the royal kitchen. One day, while having a conversation with King Rituparna, Bahuka. Now, the new identity that Nala has taken on, the name of this new identity is Bahuka. So Bahuka is having this conversation with King Rituparna, where he talks about how he has been bestowed with exemplary culinary skills through a boon from Yama. He claims to have mastered some complex techniques of cooking which is difficult to achieve even with the best of ingredients. He confidently and proudly asserts that the food that he cooks has magical healing properties and the person who eats his food regularly can live a long and healthy life. Hearing all this, King Rituparna is astonished and he strongly feels and urges Nala that this knowledge needs to be shared with people for their greater good. Upon which, Nala presents his compilation on this craft, which includes all the rituals one needs to be acquainted with in order to practice this kala. He presents Paaka-Darpanam. Paaka meaning to cook. Darpanam means a mirror. In essence, Nala presents his reflections on cooking. This text is divided into 11 chapters. The first chapter being the longest and followed by 10 other smaller chapters. The text begins with pre-cooking rituals or preparatory rituals, quality of ingredients, quality of the cook and quality of the person who will be serving the food. This includes personal hygiene and mental well-being. Following this, there are nearly 90 plus recipes that includes different ways of cooking grains, meat, legumes, vegetables and several green leafy side dishes. Included are also milk-based sweet dishes, digestive beverages and chutneys. Additionally, there are detailed procedures about making fresh ghee, condensing milk and setting fresh yogurt. It also includes details about purification, cooling and flavoring water. I'm going to share 7 things from this text that I found fascinatingly insightful and amusing. Sensorial experience. The emphasis on indulgent sensorial experience is hard to overlook. The kala is holistic with deep thought given to what we today call as interactivity design or experience design. Food is categorized based on how one interacts with it. Pakshya, Bhojya, Lehya, Choshya and Peya. Bhakshya is solid food that needs to be chewed down. Bhojya is soft food that doesn't need much chewing. Lehya is condensed or viscous food that needs to be licked. Choshya is food that is consumed by sucking it in. And Peya is food that you drink. Flavors are categorized into 6. Sweet, sour, bitter, salty, pungent and astringent. Pungent would be any sharp flavor, for example, asafoetida or a very overpowering spice mix. Astringent would be that taste when you bite into a raw fruit. Every recipe focuses on balancing flavors with aromatics and spices. The usual ones like cumin, coriander, cinnamon, cardamom, saffron were all there, but what amused me the most was the extensive use of flowers and camphor. Now, for the uninitiated, The camphor that is added to food is different from the camphor that is burnt. So this is also known as edible camphor or pachakalpuram in Tamil. Camphor is procured from camphor wood trees. Traces of camphor is also found in herbs like lavender and rosemary. Now, I am familiar with using edible camphor in certain sweet dishes. However, I was completely surprised by how it seems to be a standard aromatic that is added to almost every recipe that is mentioned in this text. Similarly, the extensive use of flowers. Different kinds of flowers including jasmine flower, champaka, ketaki, lotuses, lilies are used to infuse flavors into milk, yogurt, water, oil, rice. There is so much of layering that is happening in this craft with those infusions of flavors at different stages of cooking. And I had never known about the use of flowers, that too this extensively. For places where there may not be availability of fresh flowers, this text also has as an alternative of how the essences can be trapped into muslin cloth or earthen pots and can be carried along while traveling. The other thing that caught my attention was the specificity to salt. There are two kinds of salts mentioned in the text: sendha or rock salt, or what we know as Himalayan pink salt, and samudriya or sea salt. This work is also very poetic in nature. There is insistence on visual appeal of a dish. There is extensive vocabulary that talks about beauty, enhancement, grace, presentation for every recipe. The author is also highly in favor of using puga patta. Puga means areca and patta means a strip. Now, several historians have several interpretations of what a puga patta means. Based on my understanding, because the author says uses the puga patta for broadly for two things. One is to store and serve food, and on certain occasions he also uses it to wrap food and then cook it in ghee, like a leaf wrapped cooking technique. So my understanding of it is that he is referring to strips of the areca palm leaves. The areca palm leaves are by themselves not edible, but they are totally safe for cooking and for eating from them. So you can bake in them, you can steam in them. So my understanding is that it was essentially the areca palm leaves, which when taken out are like little strips, and that was used. That was perhaps woven and used to make plates. In modern times, we do have areca palm plates and cups, which are created and hardened through heat compression. I also found the sounds that were mentioned in this text very endearing. For example, when referring to water boiling, the author says, when the water begins to utter bud 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 bud,